Captain Jenna Sorrows gripped the railing of her flagship's bridge, knuckles white, as she watched another of Earth's cruisers shatter under the onslaught of the Zorlax warships. Crimson beams of cutting energy sliced through the cruiser's hull, spilling atmosphere, debris, and bodies into the uncaring void. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Pattern Delta 5. Jenna shouted over the comm, desperate to salvage what remained of her convoy. The dozen remaining Earth vessels wheeled in space, barely avoiding the withering hail of fire from the Zorlax pursuers. Jenna fought back nausea as her own ship, the EDF Dauntless, pulled a high G-turn. They couldn't keep up this deadly dance much longer. The Zorlax had them outgunned and outclassed. It was a bitter truth she'd become all too familiar with over the months, since the merciless Empire had torn its way into human space, shredding humanity's defenses. "Captain, jump calculations complete," her navigation officer called out, voice taut with stress. "Activating hyperdrive. Now." The stars on the view screen blurred into streaks as the Dauntless leaped into the swirling vortex of hyperspace, the remaining human ships close behind. Jenna exhaled heavily, some of the tension draining from her shoulders. They'd bought themselves a brief reprieve, nothing more. She turned away from the view screen, forcing calm into her voice. "Damage report." Her first officer consulted his display, face grim. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, heavy casualties in engineering. Weapons at 30%, shields holding at 15%. We can't take much more of this, Captain." "None of us can," Jenna murmured, fists clenched at her sides. She'd witnessed too many good people, good ships, lost to the Zorlax's ruthless advance. Earth's fleets were putting up a valiant fight, but they were outnumbered and outmatched in almost every way. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before humanity's defenses crumbled entirely. Jenna shook her head, pushing back the specter of despair. They needed a miracle, a game-changer. And she might just have a lead on one. "Set course for the Orc 221 star system. Maximum speed," she ordered, ignoring the confused looks from her bridge crew. "I know it's off our patrol route, but trust me. There's something there that might just turn the tide of this war." Her first officer frowned but nodded, relaying the orders. Jenna settled into her command chair, mind racing. She was chasing a ghost, a legend, the lost human warship Retribution, said to possess technology far surpassing anything in Earth's current arsenal. If the fragments of data she pieced together were true, the Retribution had vanished in the Orc 221 system centuries ago, during humanity's first ill-fated conflict with the Zorlax. It was a desperate gamble, Jenna knew. The odds of the Retribution still being out there, still operational after so long, were vanishingly slim. But with Earth's fleets being systematically decimated, with the Zorlax closing in on humanity's core worlds, they had to try. The alternative was too grim to contemplate. As the Dauntless hurtled through the shimmering tunnel of hyperspace, Jenna pulled up all the data she'd collected on the Retribution. Schematics, battle logs, crew manifests, all fragmentary and centuries old. The warship had been a marvel of its age. Heavily armored, equipped with advanced beam weapons and missiles, powered by a near-limitless zero-point energy core, a single vessel that could take on entire fleets. If they could find the Retribution, if they could somehow reactivate it. "Captain, approaching the Orc 221 system," her navigator reported, shaking Jenna from her ruminations. "Dropping out of hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. The distorted light of the hyper-tunnel collapsed back into real space, distant stars snapping into pinpoint clarity. And dominating the view screen was a vast field of drifting asteroids, spinning lazy orbits around a dim red dwarf star. Somewhere in that ancient, silent rubble, Jenna hoped, was humanity's last chance. She straightened in her seat, voice crisp with resolve. "Full sensor sweep. If the Retribution is out there, we're going to find it. The future of Earth depends on us." Awakening a sleeping giant, the EDF Dauntless drifted through the asteroid field, its sensors probing the ancient rocks for any hint of the Retribution's presence. On the bridge, Captain Jenna Sorrows leaned forward in her seat, eyes intent on the readouts scrolling across her display. "Anything yet?" she asked, unable to fully mask the tension in her voice. Her sensor officer shook his head, frustration evident. "Nothing conclusive, Captain. There's a lot of interference from the asteroids, and if the Retribution is here, its power signature is so low as to be nearly undetectable." Jenna bit her lip, refusing to let doubt creep in. The Retribution was here. It had to be. She could feel it in her bones. "Keep scanning. Helm, take us deeper into the field. Thrusters only. Carefully." The Dauntless crept forward, weaving between the tumbling asteroids with painstaking precision. Each minute that ticked by felt like an eternity, the knowledge of Earth's dire situation a constant weight on Jenna's shoulders. Suddenly, the sensor officer straightened, eyes wide. "Captain, I'm picking up an anomaly, bearing 227 Mark 14. It's faint, but it could be a match for the Retribution's energy signature." Jenna's heart leaped into her throat. On screen, maximum magnification. The view screen flickered, then zoomed in on a massive asteroid, easily several kilometers in diameter. At first glance, it seemed no different from the countless other rocks drifting through the system. But as the magnification increased, Jenna saw it. A glimpse of metal, of angular lines too precise to be natural, peeking out from a gash in the asteroid's surface. "That's it," she breathed, scarcely daring to believe it. "That's the Retribution. It must have been damaged in battle and drifted into the asteroid, fusing with it over the centuries." She turned to her first officer, voice sharp with urgency. "Assemble an away team. We're going over there. If there's even a chance of getting that ship operational again, we have to try." Within minutes, Jenna was leading a small team across the void in a shuttlecraft, weaving through the asteroid field toward their target. They set down on the asteroid's surface, as close to the exposed section of the Retribution as they dared. "Helmets on. Weapons ready," Jenna ordered as they prepared to disembark. "We have no idea what we might find over there." The team exited the shuttle, mag boots clamping onto the asteroid's rocky surface. Up close, the scale of the Retribution was staggering. Even with most of its bulk fused into the asteroid, it dwarfed their shuttlecraft. They made their way to the exposed hull section, cutting through the ancient metal with plasma torches. As they stepped into the Retribution's dark, airless corridors, Jenna felt a thrill of awe and trepidation. They were walking into history, into legend. Guided by the ship's schematics, they navigated deeper into the vessel, toward the bridge and engineering sections. Emergency lights flickered to life as they passed, ancient reactors stirring in response to the first human presence in centuries. On the bridge, Jenna approached the central command console, brushing away layers of dust to reveal the dark screens and dormant controls. She exchanged a glance with her team, then reached out and pressed the main power switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from the very bones of the ship, the Retribution awakened. Consoles lit up, displays flickering to life, ancient computers bootstrapping into operation. A holographic avatar materialized above the command console, a stern-faced man in an old-style Earth uniform. "Retribution Eye Online," the avatar stated in a clipped, no-nonsense tone. "Identifying authorized personnel. Stand by." A beam of light scanned over Jenna and her team, analyzing, verifying. After what felt like an eternity, the avatar nodded. Identity confirmed. "Captain Jenna Sorrows of the Earth Defense Force. Welcome aboard the Retribution, Captain." Jenna let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They'd done it. They'd found the Retribution, and against all odds, it was still operational. But their elation was short-lived. Proximity alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship, red lights pulsing in warning. On the main view screen, a flotilla of Zorlak's warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the asteroid field, weapons already charging. "Alert," the Retribution Eye announced, its voice still maddeningly calm. "Multiple hostile contacts detected. The Retribution is not yet at full operational capacity. Estimated time to full power, 15 minutes. Jenna swore under her breath. They were out of time. The Zorlax must have tracked them. Somehow. She turned to her team, jaw set with determination. "Back to the shuttle. We're returning to the Dauntless. We'll hold off the Zorlax for as long as we can. Buy the Retribution the time it needs." It was a desperate plan, and they all knew it. The Dauntless and its escort were no match for the Zorlax force bearing down on them. But they had no choice. As they raced back to their ship, Jenna could only pray they could hold out long enough for the Retribution to come to their aid. The fate of humanity itself hung in the balance. The might of the ancients. Captain Jenna Sorrows gripped the arms of her command chair as the EDF Dauntless shuddered under another barrage from the Zorlax warships. On the view screen, the ancient hulk of the Retribution loomed, still dark and dormant, fused into the massive asteroid. "Shields at 30%. Her tactical officer shouted over the blare of alarms. "We can't take much more of this, Captain." Jenna gritted her teeth, eyes locked on the Retribution. "Come on," she thought desperately. "Wake up. We need you." As if in answer to her silent plea, a sudden, blinding flare of light erupted from the Retribution's hull. A shockwave rippled out, shaking the asteroid, the Dauntless, and the Zorlax ships alike. On the view screen, the Retribution transformed before their eyes. Ancient armor plates shifted and realigned, shaking off the rock and dust of centuries. Weapon emplacements emerged, glowing with barely restrained power. The once dark viewports blazed to life, bathing the asteroid in an eerie, pulsing glow. The Retribution. Jenna breathed, scarcely able to believe what she was seeing. "It's operational." As if to punctuate her words, the Retribution's main engines flared to life, propelling the massive warship out of the asteroid in a cloud of shattered rock. It moved with a grace and agility that belied its size, ancient thrusters pivoting to face the Zorlax fleet. The Zorlax ships, seemingly taken aback by this sudden development, ceased their attack on the Dauntless. For a moment, an eerie stillness settled over the battlefield, the calm before the storm. Then, with a brilliance that seared Jenna's eyes even through the viewscreen's filters, the Retribution opened fire. Lances of incandescent energy leaped from its weapon arrays, crossing the void in an instant to slam into the Zorlax ships. Jenna watched in awe as the beams sliced through the Zorlax vessels, like a hot knife through butter, shearing off entire sections, turning armored hulls to molten slag in an instant. The Zorlax returned fire, but their beams splashed harmlessly against the Retribution's shimmering energy shields. Incoming transmission from the Retribution. Her comms officer reported, voice shaking with excitement. On screen, Jenna ordered, hardly daring to breathe. The face of the Retribution's eye avatar appeared, calm and impassive amidst the carnage unfolding around it. "Captain Sorrows, the Retribution is fully operational and engaging the enemy. We recommend you withdraw to a safe distance." Jenna shook her head, a fierce grin spreading across her face. "Negative. Retribution, we're not going anywhere. The EDF Dauntless stands with you." If the AI was surprised by her response, it didn't show it. "Understood, Captain. Coordinating attack patterns now. Let's show these Zorlax the might of human ingenuity." The Dauntless and the Retribution surged forward together, a united front against the Zorlax onslaught. Jenna felt a surge of pride as she watched her ship's weapons join the Retribution's, blue EDF bolts and incandescent lances, weaving a deadly tapestry through the Zorlax ranks. Under the combined onslaught, the Zorlax began to crumble. Ships shattered and spun away, trailing debris and atmosphere. Others attempted to flee, only to be run down and systematically destroyed by the Retribution's relentless pursuit. It was a rout, a slaughter on a scale Jenna had never dared dream of. In mere minutes, the once formidable Zorlax fleet was reduced to drifting wreckage. the survivors limping away into hyperspace. On the bridge of the Dauntless, the crew erupted into cheers. Against all odds, they had done it. They had found the retribution, and with it, turned the tide of the war in a single decisive battle. But Jenna knew this was only the beginning. News of the retribution's return would spread like wildfire, bolstering human morale and striking fear into the heart of the Zorlax Empire. The war was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, she dared to hope. "Set a course for Earth," she ordered, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. "It's time to bring the retribution home and show the Zorlax what humanity is truly capable of." As the Dauntless and the Retribution leaped into hyperspace side by side, Jenna allowed herself a moment to savor their victory. The road ahead would be long and hard, but with the might of the ancients at their side, humanity would prevail. They had to. Reunion and revelation. The EDF Dauntless and the Retribution emerged from hyperspace to a hero's welcome. As they approached Earth's orbit, they were greeted by a formation of EDF ships, their hulls gleaming in the light of the sun. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Jenna Sorrows stood tall, pride and relief etched on her face. They had done it. They had brought the retribution home, and with it, a glimmer of hope in the war against the Zorlax. As the two ships docked at the EDS main orbital station, Jenna was greeted by a contingent of high-ranking officers and officials, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief as they laid eyes on the legendary retribution. Among them was Admiral Grayson, the supreme commander of the EDF. He stepped forward, hand outstretched. "Captain Sorrows, you've done the impossible. The retribution. I never thought I'd see it with my own eyes." Jenna took his hand, shaking it firmly. "It wasn't just me, Admiral. It was my crew, and the retribution itself. Without them, we wouldn't be standing here." Grayson nodded, his expression turning serious. "Indeed. And now we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. The Retribution's AI has requested to brief us on the ship's history and capabilities. I want you there, Captain. You've earned that much." Jenna felt a thrill of anticipation as she followed Grayson and the other officers into a secure briefing room. As they took their seats, the holographic avatar of the Retribution's AI materialized at the head of the table. "Greetings," the AI began, its voice calm and measured. "I am the artificial intelligence designated as Retribution. I was created to serve as the warship's central control and strategic systems." The AI paused, as if gathering its thoughts. The Retribution was constructed over 3 centuries ago, during humanity's first conflict with the Zorlax. At the time, we believed the Zorlax to be an isolated, aggressive species. We were wrong. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a star map of the galaxy. Through the Retribution's advanced sensors and my own analysis, we discovered a disturbing truth. The Zorlax were not acting alone. They were the pawns of a far greater threat, an ancient, malevolent intelligence that had been manipulating younger races for millennia. The display zoomed in, focusing on a dark, swirling anomaly at the galaxy's edge. We designated this entity as the Nexus. It was a hive mind, a collective consciousness that absorbed and enslaved other species. The Zorlax were merely its latest tools, sent to conquer and assimilate humanity. Jenna felt a chill run down her spine. The Zorlax were formidable enough on their own. The idea of a greater, controlling intelligence behind them was terrifying. The Retribution was designed to counter this threat, the AI continued. Our mission was to find and destroy the Nexus, to free the galaxy from its influence. But we were betrayed. The AI's avatar flickered, as if pained by the memory. One of our own, a high-ranking EDF officer, had fallen under the sway of the Nexus. He sabotaged the Retribution during a critical battle, leaving us crippled and drifting. We were forced to hide, to go into stasis, in hopes that one day humanity would find us and finish what we started. A heavy silence fell over the room as the AI concluded its tale. Admiral Grayson leaned forward, his face grim. If what you're saying is true, then this war is far bigger than we ever imagined. The Zorlax are just the beginning. The AI nodded. Indeed, the Nexus is stirring once again. The Zorlax's sudden and relentless assault on humanity is proof of that. We must act quickly and decisively if we hope to stop it. Jenna straightened in her seat, her resolve hardening. Then that's what we'll do. The EDF and the Retribution, together, will take the fight to the Nexus and end this threat once and for all. There were nods and murmurs of agreement around the table. The path ahead would be perilous, but they had no choice. The fate of humanity, indeed the fate of the galaxy itself, rested on their shoulders. As the meeting adjourned and Jenna made her way back to the Dauntless, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far greater than any of them had ever imagined. The true war was just beginning. The line in the sand. The combined fleet of the Earth Defense Force hung in the void at the edge of the Antares system, a glittering array of ships stretching as far as the eye could see. At the heart of the formation, the Retribution loomed, its ancient hull bristling with newly refurbished weapons. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Jenna Sorrows stood tense and ready, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Beside her, Admiral Grayson's face was set in grim lines, the weight of the coming battle heavy on his shoulders. "The Zorlax Armada will be arriving any moment," he said, his voice tight. "According to our intel, this is their main invasion force. If we can stop them here, it will buy us precious time to locate and deal with the Nexus." Jenna nodded, her hand resting on the hilt of her service pistol. "We'll stop them, Admiral. We have to. The Retribution and the EDF. We won't let them pass." As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the bridge. On the main view screen, a massive wormhole tore open the fabric of space, its edges roiling with eerie, unnatural energy. "Zorlax ships incoming," the tactical officer shouted. "Reading. My God, there's hundreds of them." Jenna felt her breath catch in her throat as the Zorlax Armada poured out of the wormhole. Battleships, dreadnoughts, carriers, and countless smaller craft, all bristling with weapons and shielding. It was a force capable of conquering entire star systems, and it was bearing down on them with inexorable purpose. "All ships, engage at will," Admiral Grayson barked, his voice cutting through the rising terror. "Protect the Retribution at all costs." The void erupted with the fire of 1,000 suns as the two fleets clashed. EDF ships launched volleys of missiles and energy beams, their hulls glowing with the heat of their own weapons. The Zorlax responded in kind, their strange, organic-looking ships spitting bolts of searing plasma. At the heart of the maelstrom, the Retribution surged forward, its ancient weapons blazing with the fury of a forgotten age. Under Jenna's command, it wove through the battle like a dancer, its point defense systems swatting aside incoming fire, its main cannons reducing Zorlax ships to molten slag with every shot. But for all its might, the Retribution was still just one ship against hundreds. Jenna gritted her teeth as the bridge shook around her, sparks flying from overloaded consoles. On the tactical display, EDF ships winked out one by one, overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the Zorlax. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. The damage control officer reported, his voice edged with panic. "Shields down to 15%. Jenna slammed her fist on the arm of her command chair. They were being pushed back, slowly but surely. At this rate, even the Retribution would be overwhelmed. They needed a miracle. Suddenly, the Retribution's eye avatar flickered to life beside her, its face a mask of calm determination. "Captain, I believe I have a solution, but it carries great risk." Jenna turned to face the AI, hope warring with desperation in her heart. "At this point, I'm open to anything. What have you got?" The AI brought up a schematic of the Retribution, certain sections pulsing with an ominous red light. "The Retribution's zero-point reactor. If we overload it and jettison it into the heart of the Zorlax fleet, the resulting explosion could destroy them utterly." Grayson, overhearing, spun to face the AI. "Are you mad? The explosion would take us as well." The AI shook its head. "Not necessarily. If we time it correctly and jump to hyperspace at the moment of detonation, we could escape the blast." But what?" Jenna pressed, a cold knot forming in her stomach. "But the retribution itself would not survive the jump. The strain on our systems would be too great." Silence fell over the bridge as the weight of the AI's words sank in. Sacrifice the retribution, their ace in the hole, their last, best hope against the Nexus, to win a single battle. Jenna closed her eyes for a long moment. She thought of Earth, of the billions of lives hanging in the balance. She thought of her crew, of the brave men and women of the EDF, fighting and dying all around her. When she opened her eyes again, they were hard with resolve. "Do it. Overload the reactor and prepare to jettison on my mark. All hands, prepare for emergency hyperspace jump." If the AI was surprised by her decision, it didn't show it. It simply nodded and set to work, its holographic fingers dancing over the reactor controls. Jenna opened a fleet-wide channel, her voice steady and clear over the chaos of the battle. "All EDF ships, this is Captain Soros. Prepare to jump to hyperspace on my signal. And it has been an honor serving with each and every one of you." Acknowledgements flooded the channel, tinged with both fear and grim determination. They knew what was at stake. They were ready. The Retribution shuddered as its reactor began to overload, power surging through its ancient systems. On the tactical display, the Zorlak ships pressed in closer, sensing weakness, ready for the kill. "Reactor at critical levels," the AI reported, its voice strained. "Ready to jettison." Jenna's hand hovered over the controls, her heart pounding in her ears. She watched the Zorlak ships, watched the writhing wormhole that had brought them, the swirling energies at its heart. And suddenly, she understood. The wormhole, it was a conduit, a direct line to wherever the Zorlaks had come from, to the Nexus itself. "Belay that order," she shouted, her mind racing. "Aim the reactor at the wormhole. We're not just going to defeat the Zorlaks here. We're going to cut the head off the snake." The AI's eyes widened in realization, then narrowed with determination. Recalculating trajectory. Reactor aimed and ready. Jenna slammed her hand down on the control panel. "Jedi Sun." With a groan of tortured metal, the Retribution's reactor tore free from its housing, hurtling through the void toward the seething maw of the wormhole. The Zorlak ships scattered before it, too late realizing the danger. "All ships, Juve MP now," Jenna roared. As the blinding light of hyperspace engulfed the bridge, Jenna's last sight was of the reactor disappearing into the wormhole, and the wormhole collapsing in on itself like a dying star, taking the Zorlak's armada with it. Then the Retribution was gone, leaping into the safety of hyperspace, leaving the shattered remnants of the battle behind. Jenna sagged back in her chair, scarcely daring to believe it. They had done it. They had won. But the fight was far from over. Somewhere out there, the Nexus still lurked, wounded but not defeated. And Jenna swore on the memory of the Retribution that she would not rest until it was found and destroyed, once and for all.